Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Awareness of Visual Impairment in the Workplace. My name is Carla McGrotty, and I'm the Employment Manager with AHEAD. So welcome back to anyone who came to our last month's webinar, which was on accessible communication. So today's topic is visual impairment in the workplace. So I suppose if we move on to the next slide, Philip. So just to kind of remind people that we do have live captioning available, so you can click the transcript button at the bottom of your screen or the CC button, and that should come up for you there. I have my colleague Philip Carroll, who is on tech support today, so if you see Philip replying to you in the chat, he'll be sharing links and stuff like that. We do have a Q&A feature because this is a webinar format, so if you have any specific questions for our speakers, please do put them into the questions box. And our speakers are happy to kind of type their responses into the questions box there. And in terms of chatting with other attendees, let me just stop that share there. So in terms of chatting with other attendees, we do have a chat feature as well. And as always, if you are on social media, please use the hashtag webinar. We will be sharing the slides and any links that we do share in the chat with all attendees after the webinar. We do have over 170 people registered for today's session, and I can see we have almost 100 people in the door, the virtual door. So I suppose just to get a sense of who's watching here today, I might ask Philip if he can launch a poll for me. So Philip, would you mind sharing the first poll? Perfect. So the poll that's appearing on the screen, and if you are joining from a browser, you may not see this poll. So just for me to read out the questions. So the first question is, please select the option most appropriate to you. So the options are, I work in HR, I am the designated disability or access officer, I'm a hiring manager, I'm a line manager, I'm a regular employee, or I don't meet any of the above. And then there's a second question then at the bottom, and we're just going to get a sense of what sectors are people coming from. So the first option is public sector or semi-state, private employer, higher education, further education, or NGO, not-for-profit. So while that's kind of running in the background, I might just kind of give a quick introduction to who AHEAD are and who WAM are for those that don't know. So AHEAD was set up in 1988, and its aim is to create inclusive environments in education and employment for people with disabilities. WAM, or Willing Able Mentoring, is a project of AHEAD set up in 2005, and we're currently funded by the Department of Social Protection. What we do is we work with employers to provide ring-fenced graduate level internships or placements, as we sometimes call them, for graduates with disabilities. And they're all for a minimum of 6 months, or they could be longer. To date, we've placed over 600 graduates from the programme, and about 80% of our graduates secure full-time work as a direct result of their placement. So I might get Philip to stop that poll, end the poll, and maybe share the results. Perfect. So what's popping up on the screen now is we can see the results of that poll that we had. So we have kind of similar answers in terms of people working in HR or they're the disability or access officer. So 26% work in HR, 27% work in disability or access roles. We have 1% of people here as a hiring manager, 16% as a line manager, 22% as a regular employee, and then 8% they don't meet any of the above. In terms of the sector, we have a lot of people here actually from the public sector and semi-state. So we have almost 58% of people here watching from that sector, 21% from our private employers, and 9% from higher education, 2% from further education, and 9% from not-for-profit. So thanks very much, Philip. I'm just going to ask you to stop sharing that here today. So today's webinar, we have about up till 12:45, 1 o'clock. We have a couple of speakers lined up for you today. So the first session is going to be facilitated by the National Council for the Blind in Ireland, and I might ask Shane and Martina to turn their cameras on if they don't mind, and maybe if you want to get your slides up and ready. So while I'm kind of giving a short bio of yourselves, perfect. So Martina and Jane are both the Workplace Integration and Partner Officers at the NCBI. They strive to build positive relationships with companies and organisations across businesses in Ireland, and to advocate for the increased participation of people with visual impairments in the workforce. They provide education, information, advocacy, and disability awareness training in terms of getting people into the labour market. So Shane, Martina, I'm going to hand over to you, and I might just kind of come in and say you have 5 minutes left towards the end of your presentation, if that's okay. So yeah, I'm going to turn my camera off and keep myself muted until then.
So good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. And Carolyn and Philip, thank you very much for allowing us to speak today. This is a really great opportunity, and we really can't wait to talk to you all about visual impairment in the workplace. As was prior mentioned, any questions that you may have, Martina and I, you can just pop them up in the chat. We're more than happy to whoever is presenting, we'll get a chance to answer those questions. So once again, I'm Shane Merritt. I'm what's called the Workplace Integration and Partner Officer with my colleague Martina. I have a white shirt with a tan-ish cardigan. I had to ask what a cardigan was today. I got brown hair and a red beard, and clearly with my wonderful Dublin accent. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts. Once again, thank you all for being here today. And we're going to talk about visual impairment within the workplace. So our agenda, I know it looks like a whole bunch of stuff on there, but I promise you it's going to go through. There's going to be a lot of really good information. There's going to be some good funny stories and some great data that's going to be very valuable to all y'all. What we're going to talk about is just what is NCBI, kind of what do we work on a little bit, really what is a WIPO or a Workplace Integration Partner Officer. Feels like a mouthful, and trust me, it very much is. It's a fact. Martina's going to go over some statistics in this relation employer attitude survey for 2021, using some of the ahead information that they've released. Vision impairment / blindness in the environment. This is a combination of your working environment and your personal environment. Understanding fear and stigma, defining what those things are and what they can potentially look like from both sides of the coin. Barriers faced while seeking employment. Seeking employment versus screen readers. We'll tell you a little bit about screen readers today. Pre-interview preparation. This is going to be for, again, service users and for businesses. What to do during interviews, again, on both sides. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of a spiel of other things that NCBI and the WIPO role can kind of offer and assist people that have an interest in diversity and inclusion best practices, further education, recruitment, et cetera. We're going to get into all of that wonderful stuff. And then we're going to conclude with our contact information. But again, any questions, please fire them up through the chat box, send them on out, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. And whatever we don't get to live, we'll be here for the entirety of the Q&A. So please don't feel like if we don't answer it there, that it's not going to get answered. And I'm going to turn this now on over to Martina, please.
Hello, everybody. So as Shane mentioned, my name is Martina. I work as a Workplace Integration and Partner Officer at NCBI's Cork office. I'm originally Croatian, which explains my not Irish accent, but I've been living in Cork for more than 5 years now, so I'm almost a local, as I like to think. I have a brown curly hair up to my shoulders. I have hazel eyes, and I'm wearing a black jacket over a bright t-shirt that has an image of a wild boar riding a bicycle, because why not? And there's also an NCBI logo in my screen background. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about NCBI in case you haven't heard of us before. NCBI stands for National Council for the Blind of Ireland. We are a sightless charity that was established back in 1931, and we work daily with children and adults who are either blind or visually impaired throughout Ireland. The vision of our organization is for people with sight loss to have the same opportunities, rights, and choices as others to fully participate in society. And our values are inclusive approach, freedom of choice, openness and accountability, and pursuit of excellence. Now, how we support service users, we have several aspects where we can support people that come to us. We provide low vision advice and information. Basically, we are giving out information on how vision may have been affected by certain diseases or whatever your issue might be with your sight, and how to maximize the use of your remaining vision. We provide as well emotional support and counseling service. We have an employment and educational support as well. Functional vision assessment, that is basically providing solutions for people who have difficulties with everyday tasks, such as potentially reading or writing. And these solutions can be fairly simple, like handheld magnifiers or improved lighting or anti-glare sunglasses. It's all depends on the individual. So we are taking case-by-case approach. So we are treating everybody as an individual and looking into their set of problems when deciding how to best help them. We also provide training in orientation and mobility. That's basically learning how to get out and about safely and independently, which also helps to ensure access to education and employment. We have independent living skills, for example, as well, which are there to support people to overcome the challenges of sight loss in day-to-day lives, such as looking after themselves in the home, doing kitchen skills, cleaning, personal grooming, shopping, because some people that are part of our organization lost their sight quite recently, or their sight deteriorated, while we have people who have been low vision since birth. So it all depends on the person. We also have assistive technology services, which is basically advice and training on all types of technological solutions and some assistive aids that you might use. We have library and media conversion that helps to convert certain media aspects to the ones that are more accessible. We also have peer support and advocacy. And finally, the ECLO service, which is relatively new. This was designed to bridge a gap between hospital and community-based services by providing timely practical advice and emotional support. ECLOs help people basically to understand their diagnosis, to discuss the next steps, and to help them maintain their independence and quality of life. So how do Shane and I fit into this? So we are WIPOs, or that's a short for Workplace Integration Partner Officers here at NCBI. We have a strong drive for improving global diversity and inclusion practices. We say global because we just kind of take into consideration that we want to make this world more accessible for everybody. As mentioned before by Caroline, we are here to build positive relationship with companies, different organizations and businesses across Ireland, and to advocate for increased participation of people with visual impairment in the workforce. In developing partnership, we strive to make the ones that benefit all. So not just our service users and employers, but also everybody else, regardless of their needs. We can provide education, information, advocacy, and also disability awareness training. So we kind of cover all bits and pieces. Now, if we move on to the next slide, we are going to talk a little bit about statistic. It won't be boring, I promise. It's just to kind of help you to give an overview. So now you know what NCBI does, what we as WIPOs do, and these numbers can kind of help paint a picture how the situation is currently in Ireland. So here we have numbers from census from 2016. We are still waiting for new numbers, but this can also be quite helpful for us to understand a situation a little bit better. So back in 2016, we had almost 55,000 people in Ireland that had a sight-related disability. Out of those, 1/3 of them identified working at a job or business or attending school or college as a difficulty in daily life. So it's a quite high percentage. Only 1 in 4 people with visual impairment were in labor force back then. So it's a kind of a devastating number. And it doesn't surprise then that NCBI also did research of their own within our service users. And the 65%, actually 64, apologies, reported back then to experience discrimination while job searching. So those numbers kind of link in. And I think it's interesting to note that only 5% people we work with are completely blind. So basically most people we work with still have some level of vision left that they use in their daily lives. And most of people seem not to know that. If they hear that somebody is blind or visually impaired, they tend to think they don't see anything. But most of the cases, that's not true. On the next slide there, we have employer attitude survey from 2021. So from last year, I had kindly did this survey, and I found it really interesting because it helped us understand better how employers actually feel about disabilities and hiring people with disabilities. This data was collected from a sample of 250 private sector companies, so it's not a small number, and they all had more than 20 employees across whole Ireland. This data showed that more than 3/4 of employers have a diversity inclusion strategy. They also say that they understand what reasonable accommodations are, which is great. They also consider that it's important to hire people with disabilities to support business and innovation. So 3/4 of employers, those are some big numbers, and those are good news. On the other hand, we did see some conflicting results here, because only 25% of them then said that they are aware of the Reasonable Accommodation Fund, which is provided by the Department of Social Protection. So employers in private sector apparently don't know about it, and they can actually use this fund for their own help and to support people with disabilities working with them. And just 1/3 of them targeted their recruitment at people with disabilities. So those are not so great numbers. In addition to that, almost half believed it's a breach of trust if applicant doesn't disclose their disability. And almost half as well is linking the word disability with a physical disability. So they are overlooking or other types of disabilities there. While 83% believe applicants should disclose prior to the job offer. So that's a really high percentage. So employers feel, oh, a person should tell us if they have a disability, but only half proactively offer opportunities for people to disclose during the recruitment process. So we see there's an issue there between actually offering people a chance to disclose and feel comfortable about disclosing and telling, okay, so I might need additional support in certain aspects. But then they feel, oh, a person should tell us. So those are numbers that we should think about maybe if you're here as an employer or working in a private sector specifically, take into consideration these numbers, and let's hope these statistics will change for even better when next time ahead does this survey. So now Shane will tell you a bit more about visual impairment or blindness in the environment. So Shane, yes, please take away.
Excellent. Thank you kindly, Martina. Thanks for getting all that information out there. I always say Martina finds the best data everywhere. I have no idea how she does it or where she finds it, but she always surprises me every single time. And thanks again for getting that data out there to the public, because it is incredibly valuable. So visual impairments and blindness within the environment. So I'm going to talk about a few different types of potential positives, some scenarios, and some other things that we've encountered. So while commuting, people can gain valuable information by using auditory and tactile or olfactory signals from their surroundings. So common example of this around road crossings, y'all have probably already noticed all these things. People always call it the bumpy floor or the bumpy concrete when you're going from one section to another, or the bumpy pathway where you can have a wider set of, I'm going to call it a sidewalk, and I know that's wrong, but it will lead people in different paths that are cane users or using those additional tactile pieces. Also can sometimes confer to crosswalk crossings with the tactile buttons. And we do run into issues with some of those, though, like with the ones that you have to levitate your hand in front of. I don't know if y'all know this, but if it's raining real bad, which Ireland tends to do, it doesn't always sense that your hand is there. I've actually had service users that have been stuck at crosswalks for 5-10 minutes in the pouring wind and rain, especially when it's windy and rainy, like it has been the last 2 days. If you have a vision impairment or blindness or whatever, and you're a cane user, you're pretty much losing a whole nother sense between cars driving by, puddles splashing, wind, rain, everything else. And if you're trying to just cross a road and you can't even get the sensor to go off, these are kind of some difficulties. And that can impede somebody's ability to get to work on time, which is no fault of their own. It's the accessibility of the road crossings. So we should design information systems for users with diverse experiences and sense preferences. And many of what could be temporary obstacles can be removed and prevented if we were all more conscious of our actions. So road crossings in Ireland sometimes can also be difficult. As y'all sometimes know, there is sometimes a road crossing that is completely shifted to the right or the left of where you step off the concrete. And I don't know if you've ever tried to take a step in the middle of the dock as you're trying to get to the bathroom or make your way through your home or through a building that has a faulty light in your apartment building, but any type of curve or height and change of step can be detrimental for somebody. Everybody knows that feeling when you go to step off a curb and you're talking to somebody and you realize it was deeper than you thought. Imagine if you step off a curb and the curb that you're going to is now the opposite side and you can potentially walk right into it. Or you may not know how to get back from that section of the curb, depending on the mobility and strength within your lower half of your legs, or if you're a visually impaired wheelchair user. So within public transportations and taxis, again, relating to the employment component in everyday life, there are some pieces of public transportation that are not accessible. I have literally seen buses, cane user, hand out, leap card in hand, and the bus is driven right past. I have also seen wheelchair visually impaired users try to get on to a bus, and there is somebody with a pram in the wheelchair accessible area, and they don't want to move with that pram. The bus driver legally can't force them to get off because it's everybody's human right. So that person then has to wait for the next bus and hope that somebody's not in that spot. So all of these things can impede somebody's ability. And if you work with people who are visually impaired or blind, they are almost always very, very early. And the only delays they have are typically from the forms of transportation. So taxis sometimes as well for people with guide dogs. Some taxis, no problem at all, guide dog hops right in. And sometimes taxi drivers don't want to allow the guide dog. Now, technically it is against the right of that individual, but there's no big repercussion for it. It's just a small fine and there is no type of like penalty system on there. So those are two of the most common forms how people travel. Same thing with trains. If people need assistance with ramps, you have to call ahead of time. You have to get there on a certain time. You have to hope that somebody's in the window to help you if you need that piece. And sometimes the trains don't always have a loud enough speak system if there's going to be a delay or anything like that. I was just at Drumcondra train station yesterday with a service user waiting for a train, and over a very, very tiny little speaker, it said it was going to be 30 minutes late. The person I'm with also has a hearing impairment. They would have had no idea. They might have felt like they missed their train. They'd start to panic because they're late to get into an appointment that they may have or get to that interview or that really critical moment that they have to present in a job situation. We can also run into bins. I've got all sorts of stories about bins, people just leaving them in the middle of sidewalks, everything else. They fall over in sidewalks and nobody wants to pick them up. And if you can imagine being somebody who does have a vision impairment, whether they use a cane or not, if you don't have a strong field of vision and you have to step off into potentially a road or a bike lane and you can't see what's coming towards you, it can be pretty detrimental and add a little bit of anxiety and more stress for the day that should be necessary. And I think we all want to go into a work day with minimal stress, a nice strong cup of tea or coffee, and look forward to just getting in, warming up, especially this time of year, and we move on. Finally, bicycles and e-scooters. NCBI did a giant study actually with e-scooters from our possibility labs. Highly suggest you give it a check out. You can just Google e-scooters NCBI. It will pop on up there. But bicycles and e-scooters just popping up on curbs and coming down, especially in different types of conditions, like with rain, with flooding and everything else. But it really can be extremely dangerous, especially the e-scooters. They're silent. They're like hybrid cars. You have no idea they're even there. Whether people can, even sighted individuals like myself, I walk into my office every day and I've almost been taken out by a few e-scooters in my time. And sometimes they have more than one person on them and, nobody's got a helmet on and it's just so incredibly dangerous. And for people that typically would feel comfortable on routes, when these things start to occur, it can kind of instill a little bit of anxiety or a little bit of excess stress. But like I said, a lot of the time, service users that we work with are very, very on time. They're early. They know the systems in and out. They know all the hazards. They know all of the things they need to account for, depending on weather, holidays, time of year, etc. So I always tell people, everybody that I work with and anybody that I've worked with vision impairment and blindness, they are typically very early. And luckily they get to enjoy a cup of tea and peace as well, the warmth when they get there. So understanding fear and stigma. So fear in employment. So fear is typically defined in employment as avoiding doing something because one is afraid. Now, this can be whether it be a department, it can be a business itself because they just don't have the appropriate training. And there can also be a feeling of anxiety concerning the outcome of somebody or the safety of someone. Because when you do hire somebody who's visually impaired and blind, especially if they are a cane user, you always have to consider the questions of like, well, how are they going to get to our office? Or what happens if something goes wrong or whatever? But the good news about that is that they work with orientation and mobility specialists that go to their area, analyze the situation, figure out the best routes for public transportation, emergency routes with taxis if needed, and all of those types of things. So a lot of these are very easily distilled. And it's something that we can kind of very easily just snap our fingers and we're all set, really, which is great. Stigmas in employment. So stigmas are typically a negative understanding of a mental, physical, or social feature of a person or group of people. Like Martina said earlier, if people hear that somebody is blind, they typically have the assumption that they cannot see at all. Which a lot of them can still have outlines, blurs. And so understanding what blindness actually means and getting that definition can be sometimes the easiest way to remove those barriers, those stigmas, and those assumptions. And social stigma is when some people share negative thoughts or beliefs about a person or group of people. There are people that utilize canes. Small, thin, white cane goes right across the body. And it's mainly just to let people know, hey, I don't have the best vision in the world. Where people can sometimes see during the day, they may not have to use their cane, but because when darkness comes, their vision ability is so little that we call it night blindness. And so some people may see somebody and go, oh, well, they were reading a newspaper this morning, but now all of a sudden they've got to use a cane and a guide dog. And it's just a misunderstanding of the varying types of conditions that can relate to visual impairments and blindness. So education, training, and even just having conversations with people are really the best ways to kind of dispel all of these difficulties. So barriers faced while seeking employment, section 1 here. So a lot of company fears are, how are we going to accommodate somebody properly? Well, NCBI helps out with all of these things. We have a labs team, which can go in and assist training with assistive technology and what technology might suit best for that scenario if that service user may not know, or that onboarding individual. You have your workplace adaptation grants, you have your reasonable accommodation grants, you have your retention grants for people that are in employment and may have a regression of vision. We have all of these grants and things in place. And a lot of the time, the accommodations can be very simple or even free, which everybody loves the word free or no cost. So we can talk about some of those things. Another fear people get is, what terminology can I use? Really, the number one tip and trick that I can give anybody for any disability is say the person first, not the disability. So you'd never want to say something like, I interviewed a blind gentleman yesterday, because you're essentially defining that individual by their disability. What you would say is something, I interviewed a gentleman who was actually blind yesterday. You always want to define the person before the disability. And a lot of the fear, again, comes from costs and training. Well, most companies get about $25,000 free for disability and educational training every single year. And a lot of the time companies don't even know that, and they're missing out on a huge potential immersion within education for disability and integration and inclusion within their pieces. We've already gone over the someone who is blind cannot see at all common misconception. Another one is that cane users require assistance and direction. If you see somebody utilizing a cane, very politely ask them, just, hey, pardon me, or excuse me, do you need any assistance? A lot of the time, they know where they need to go. They know where they are. They've got it going. There are things like Microsoft Soundscape and a lot of other technological applications that assist them in their everyday life to navigate throughout this world that we live in. And the other thing is, if somebody does ask you for help, please don't just grab onto them. I have seen people near Jervis Shopping Center, for those that know that long strip, apologies, I can't remember the name, but I watched somebody ask somebody and they just grabbed right onto them and started pulling them in a direction. So instinctually I followed, because being part of NCPI, I want to make sure that they're treated well, but also going the way they were. This person walked them almost 10 minutes to the opposite side of that street, going almost all the way back towards Drumcondra, when that person wanted to go towards Temple Bar. But because the person was so excited to help somebody do a good deed, they just kind of grabbed onto them and just kind of led them in a direction. So that can also be a delay. So you always just want to make sure that you explain. You can just say, you can take my arm, you assist guide somebody to the back of where your tricep is, right above your elbow. They can hold on with a cupped hand. And really, that's all you need. And just announce if a curb's coming up or anything like that. And the final thing is, you do not need to shout to be heard. All because they have a vision impairment and blindness doesn't mean they also have a hearing condition. Some people do. And that may be a great case, but the number of times we have run into situations where somebody goes, well, I asked for help today. And then they just started to scream at me back because they thought because I had a cane, I also couldn't hear. And that has happened to people in interviews, in a variety of different transportation ways, and getting even to businesses that they work in every day. Some other important things we're going to talk about are job descriptions. So job descriptions can be another barrier based on the terminology and some other critically missing information for somebody to feel truly welcome and involved, or even potentially disclose their disability. So funnily enough, a lot of things say full driving license required or access to own vehicle. My own job description said that. I don't have it. I actually walk to work. I walk like an hour to get in, but I actually have a service user who has lost their vision later in life. They do have a full driver's license and they do technically own their own vehicle. So kind of a loophole thing, but I can imagine being in an interview and somebody goes, oh, do you have a full driver's license and access to a vehicle? And this person's a cane user and they go, yep, I got both those things. They can provide proof of it. It'd kind of be a really difficult thing to try to denounce or be like, oh, you're not meeting that requirement. And a lot of jobs don't need it. You can take public transportation, you can take a taxi, and there are certain ways that people can navigate themselves around not just having a vehicle. Missing contact persons for accommodations, whether that be human resources, diversity inclusions, or hiring teams, you should always include somebody that you can maybe outreach for an accommodation or just submit your application in that manner. Not all applications are accessible by a screen reader. Not all applications are accessible in general. If you hit the submit button and it says, please verify this image or select the images that are tractors, well, there is no alternative text to describe what images are even on the screen. So again, you're completely shutting out or making somebody feel secluded from opportunities that they may be better suited for than any other applicant that you may receive. Mention your desire to be inclusive and make it personal. Every time I talk with service users and they see we are a best, inclusive company, or, we have opportunities for all, they go, it's generic. It's just there for, the government acceptance stuff. Customize it, make it your own. Do some research into companies. Dell has an incredible one that they add, just an example to maybe people to take a look at. We're not partnered with them or anything, but when we did research, Dell had a really strong one. Really personalize it. Go into your D&I policies, pull some information out of there and really make it your own and make it personal for people. Emphasize the importance of soft skills and maybe loosen your essential requirements. A lot of individuals with vision impairment or blindness are going to have a gap in employment. It's just kind of the way it is sometimes. And so a lot of the time during that time, it's not like they're not working and they're not training or educating. They're doing all these different things, but they're also having to strengthen their soft skills. And if people don't know, soft skills currently are actually more desirable than hard skills. LinkedIn just had a release recently where creativity is actually the #1 desired soft skill globally. And nobody typically has to get more creative than those with visual impairment and blindness for everyday situations. And finally, just stay open-minded regarding employment gaps and consider candidates from varying educational levels. I know people that have just a high school diploma that I work with or high school leaving cert, but they've done so much extra education and practice beyond me that my 2 bachelors are like in the shadow compared to the information that they know. So it's not just your degree. It's not just that. So please always allow for consideration of others. Seeking employment and screen readers. So screen readers essentially access and read what is on a page. The most common ones are JAWS, which is a paid for screen reader, which is £1,000, and NVDA, which is fully free. It's all up to personal preference, just so you know. Applications, some of them, like I've mentioned, are just not accessible by screen readers. If you're looking for more information on that type of stuff, Martina and I have a study of some of the best websites and the way that they've done it. Like I mentioned, if it requires an image or even letter verification to submit something, those aren't accessible. So somebody could fill out the whole document, go hit apply, and they just can't do it. Paper only, yes, this does still happen in the current day. And I know that it's crazy, especially after COVID, but some things really are paper only that are completely inaccessible. People unable to ask for an accommodation. Again, if you have that in the job description, you never have to worry about it again. And time limits or inability to save. So Eventbrite is a great website, but they only give about 10 minutes to submit their form. And not all of the sections of the form, depending on the length, are accessible. And I have had service users get all the way to the end of the form, it times them out and they can't submit and they have to do it all over again. So sometimes just having the ability to save and come back to it, like if you have an account linked to the application, fantastic. Assignments and pre-testing, psychometric testing, not always accessible. I'm severely colorblind. Like you would never want me to redecorate your room or pick out an outfit for you. And sometimes it can be like, well, what color do you associate with? Well, I can't see the colors in the wheel, so I don't actually know. Once again, time limits to the inability to save, unable to ask for accommodations, that inaccessibility by a screen reader, or even just having alternative formats like large print, braille, etc. And then image, graphs, or tables, especially if they do not include any form of alternative text. All right. And then I'm going to pop this back over to Martina. She's going to give you a bit more information for interview stuff. So back to you, Martina, and thank you all kindly.
Thank you, Shane. Just before we continue, we noticed there are some questions popping up. I already sent a response to Sandra there. And I see Ursula is asking, is there an alternative wording that could be used instead of full license needed on a job spec? So I would say there's no need for alternative wording. It's just more about considering whether the job actually requires a person to have a full license. For example, if they are if the job is driving a truck, of course you're expecting a person to have a full license and specific accreditations with that license so they can actually do their job. But if the job requires some traveling, but that traveling can also be done with public transport, with buses, with trains, maybe just skip it entirely. If the person can do their job without issues, even if they don't have an access to a car or a full driver's license, then just remove it from the ad. I would say that would be the solution there. Shane, if you have anything to add on that, feel free.
Yeah, Martina, the only thing I would add is that if you do feel like you want to keep the included full license within there, what I would do is specify like license, and then I would say something like, or open to reasonable accommodations, or just make sure that you have that section that it's not the critical part. It's a component, yes, but you can also add that reasonable accommodations piece. Or if it is something around operating a vehicle, again, if the job doesn't explicitly need to operate the vehicle, like Martina said, you can take it out. But just always make sure that in the bottom you add that reasonable accommodation contact individual, because then that way, and add like any questions, comments, or concerns, please contact somebody for such reasons, because then they can ask the question, well, is a license really needed for this job? Because I have one, but I have a vision impairment. I can't use my license, or I can't operate a vehicle, but is that critical to the job? And then you can reply with that. And then it can still give them that, oh, yes, awesome. So it's not 100% critical. At least now I know that, instead of them just never getting the opportunity to learn more and then feeling like they shouldn't apply for that one reason. So that's my ad, Martina. Back to you.
Thank you, Shane. So I know we are kind of tight on time, so I'm going to power through these two slides. We don't have much left. So this is just the aspect of the pre-interview preps and how to behave during interviews. So before the interview, what you can do on your end as an employer, in case a candidate shares details of their disability when applying, if you gave them an opportunity to disclose the disability, ask what adjustments they might need for the interview. So if you are aware that person has certain needs, ask them, okay, so how can we support you better for the interview process? If there is any paperwork required during the interview, make sure you also have an alternative accessible format. So, if they need to fill in a certain form when they come in, maybe allow them to fill in that form beforehand through a digital option, send them a Word document, because It doesn't have to only apply for people with visual impairment. It can also apply for people with dyslexia who might struggle, especially under pressure before the interview. And now you have to fill in the form and read what it says. So allow people time, and that kind of links in onto the next point. Allow enough time for candidates to prepare before the interview. So don't just kind of contact them and tell them, okay, tomorrow you have the interview. Give them a few days to prepare, to maybe think about what they can say. It's just a kind of general rule for everybody. An important reminder here, disclosing a disability is up to the discretion of the individual. So we link back on that statistics of before, where employers feel that people should disclose, but they are not really allowing them an option to do so. But keep in mind that it is up to the discretion. This applies whether it's a physical or mental disability. And try to ensure that your recruitment process is welcoming for people with disabilities in general. Offer accommodations options when they apply, or the diversity and inclusion contact person they can get in touch with before they even start. That will ensure that people with disabilities feel comfortable in letting you know if they need a certain support. However, if they already have solutions in place to ensure they fulfill their role without issues, they might not disclose, and that's completely fine. So keep that in mind, and make it more inclusive. Add contact person for reasonable accommodations. This is an important bit. I know not everybody can afford to have a diversity and inclusion person in their company, but it's good to consider this moving forward. Having that one person in the company who will be there as a guide, or as a person who you can get in touch with if you have any issues. It's a good thing to keep in mind. It's a good person to have in your company, even if it's not something that you can have readily available, to think down the line, okay, maybe we could hire a person who can do this for us. And if we move on to the next slide, a few things to keep in mind during interviews. Introduce yourself. So a person comes in for an interview. Introduce yourself. Potentially give a brief description of how you look. If interview includes multiple people, so if you have a panel of 3 or 4 people sitting in there, state your name before starting to speak or asking the questions, because if you just jump from one person to another, it can be generally just confusing. If you have something to present to an applicant, avoid just pointing out on graphs without describing them verbally. For example, if you're saying that the paragraph on your right-hand side displays the financial gains and losses over the last 6 months, November was lowest while December was highest. Something like that. Include description. Don't rely on person just looking into the stuff and getting information out of that. Keep in mind to ask all candidates the same questions. Don't ask them things you wouldn't anyone else. And all staff involved with the interview and selection process should understand companies' policies on equality and diversity. I would include in this slide, we had actual experience from our service users who mentioned that they get quite nervous before the interview, just because if they didn't have a chance, or there was no need to disclose prior to the interview phase about their disability, they get nervous because they're really self-conscious. If they're a cane user, a guide dog user, they walk in and it's quite apparent that they have a disability. And they start to overthink that, and it can affect the whole interview process. So think about how you can actually make it easier for people when doing the interview. Offer options. For example, we all kind of use the Zoom and Teams now. Online interviews are not a big deal anymore. So if you can offer online interview and in-person interview, do that. Give them an option to choose whether. Well, depends on what they will feel more comfortable with, and ensure that they can feel comfortable and not worried about their disability. You can ask if you notice that they have a cane, if they need any kind of support, or you can point them out, ask if they need need you to point them out where the chair is, where they are going to sit, and stuff like that. So make them at ease. Don't just stand there awkwardly, because it's never a good solution. So I think with this, we are kind of coming to an end of our presentation. We have our contact details here. So Shane is based in Dublin, I'm based in Cork. Our emails are displayed on the screen. It's Shane Merritt at ncbi.ie. Mine is martina.melvan@ncbi.ie. We can share that in written after the presentation as well. So if you have any questions, want to contact us for any reasons, please do feel free to reach out. And I know Shane has a few last words to share with you before we move to Bobby. So thank you again for being here.
I've just got one sentence, Carolyn. It'll be right on that time limit. So essentially, the number one thing we always tell people is please reach out to us. There's a lot of things. And the number one thing to keep in mind is that if you keep or you create something accessible for somebody visually impaired or blind, you make it accessible for everyone. It also includes contrast, color blindness, dyslexia, age, everything else in between. It's not just for one disability. It's accessible for everyone. And that's the final thing we're going to say. I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll pass to Carolyn. Thank you kindly.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Shane and Martina. And you've been great kind of answering some of the questions in the chat. We will have time for Q&A at the end. So I've also made a note of them, Jane. I saw your comments there. So we have made a note of some of those longer questions that we will get Shane and Martina to answer to as well. So I suppose just to kind of move on to our next speaker, we have Bobby Hickey. So Bobby, I believe Bobby's having some technical issues here this morning. So are you able to turn on your camera, Bobby? I think you're still on mute, Bobby, there.
Yeah, so. Sorry, I am trying to turn it on now. I might just have to go into settings.
No problem at all.
We'll get on.
We'll get going. So I might just, instead of people just seeing my face on the screen, I might just share like a holding slide that I have of you while I'm kind of interviewing you. So today's session, I'm going to be asking Bobby a couple of questions. So for those that don't know, I'm just going to do a quick intro as to who Bobby is. So Bobby is currently working as a policy executive at IBEC, which is Ireland's largest business representative group. She's very well known on social media, particularly TikTok. I don't personally use TikTok, but she has quite a large following on TikTok, and she's been sharing her experience of living with a visual impairment. And I suppose today she's going to be kind of sharing her experience of navigating the world of employment as a graduate, the support that she's received from her employer, the hopes for the future, and what she believes she wants employers to know about hiring people who have visual impairment. So actually, before I begin, Bobby, I'm actually just going to share a TikTok video of yours, which kind of prompted us to kind of get you on board for today's webinar. So I'm just going to share that with the attendees here on the screen. So hopefully this all works. So on the screen now is going to be displaying a TikTok video that Bobby has made. So I will just make sure I'm sharing with sound as well, because that can also be an issue. So bear with me. Here we go. Right. So I'm going to press play on the video now.
So today was my first day in the office as a policy exec for IBEC. I woke up at 6 a.m. and I got myself and Josie ready to go out the door. And here we are at the bus stop. I commute in from Wicklow. It's about an hour long on the bus, and you're about to see my really cute bag that they gave me. It fits everything inside it, but it's not the most aesthetically pleasing. Anyway, walked into the office, and then we just had all the induction trainings and stuff like that, all the procedures and policies that we have to go through if anything goes wrong. And then there's a little outdoor area for Josie to go to the bathroom in, the same as they had in DCU. And yes, that is the same bed that I had in the union. It's getting reused, guys. And everyone on the team is so nice. Like, they're all just so helpful, and it just seems like a really nice place to work. So I'm really excited to be here. My mouse, can you see it? It's purple. It's so cute. And this is Josie being the new office flirt. And then on the way home, unfortunately, the bus drove past me. It's never happened to me with this company before. Usually they're really, really good, but they drove past me today. So I ended up having to get the 145 towards Bray, and then luckily Colm's sister was finishing work in Bray, so Colm's brother picked the two of us up and then brought me home, and I finished the day by bringing Josie to the dog park and ready for tomorrow.
That's all very fast paced there. So I'm just going to stop my share. We did lose Bobby there for a minute or two. So can I confirm that Bobby's in the room, virtual room? I can kind of see her video, but I think she's still on mute. Can you hear me, Bobby? Yeah.
I can. Sorry about that. My camera is not playing ball, so I'll just say audio if that's okay.
That's no problem at all. So I'm just going to share a holding slide, just kind of so people don't have to just see my face. So the holding slide is an image of yourself, Bobby, with your guide dog. What's your guide dog's name again?
Josie.
Josie. Yeah. So I suppose, Bobby, could you please tell the audience about yourself and your background? So while you were having some technical difficulties, I shared that wonderful video of your first day at work. But for those that don't know you, perhaps you could share some information about yourself and your background.
Yeah, ironic that I'm having tech issues and we're talking about how good I am on social media. But yeah, so I suppose I'm 23. I did a PLC, a post-leaving cert course in journalism and public relations, because I didn't get the kind of allocated amount of points to get into the college that I wanted to get into. And I didn't get the allocated amount of points even with the DARE system. So I did a PLC in journalism and public relations. And then with that course, I got into my desired original course, which was communication studies in DCU. And then from that, I went on to be the vice president for diversity and inclusion in DCU Students' Union. And that was the first year that role was in existence, last year, 2021 to 2022. And then I've recently just started as a policy exec in IBEC. So that's a little bit of background, I suppose.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Bobby. And it's really interesting, that route to education as well. And I suppose here in ahead, we do have a college fair called Better Options, and it's actually on the 26th of November this year, which is a Saturday, and it's all about exploring kind of, post secondary school options. So, that there are other routes into, I suppose, to get to where you want to go to. So doing a PLC courses and then kind of transitioning on to third level, or perhaps doing apprenticeships and stuff like that. So it's really great to kind of hear that, I suppose, you've had the non-traditional route, and you've kind of explored different options to kind of get to where you are today. I suppose, could you tell us a little bit about your social media presence and the videos you share on TikTok? Now, I'm not familiar with TikTok myself, and maybe some of the people in the audience aren't, but is there a particular reason as kind of why you want to start sharing your experience on social media?
Yeah, I suppose it was just sheer kind of, I've always wanted to do it. I've always loved doing video creating. I was that kid who would just pick up the camera and just talk to it and like act as if it was like my friend. It was like a video diary, and I would just make little vlogs when I was growing up of like whatever I was doing on that one particular day, and it would be of complete like irrelevant topics, nothing of importance at all, but I've always loved doing it. And I've always kind of been jealous of those YouTubers growing up who would just vlog their day and get loads of interaction from audience and stuff like that. So I suppose when TikTok became really big during lockdown, I became obsessed with that. But I was always kind of like, what would be my angle? Because I don't just want to become another person online who just vlogs their day, because I think there is something interesting and intriguing about having a disability that I think when you move past the kind of awkwardness about it at times, it can become really educational and really, entertaining, because there are parts of being blind that are hilarious and you do get funny stories. But when I got my guide dog Josie, I used that as my kind of foot in the door, I suppose, and almost like an excuse to start vlogging. So I videoed the entire training process with Josie, which was actually quite a unique one anyway, because it was during lockdown. So I suppose not proper lockdown, it was one of those level 3 or level 4s. So the guide dogs came to my house in Dublin, and we trained kind of in the area that I grew up in, which is quite unusual. Usually you go down to a centre in Cork for 3 weeks, and instead I got a much more condensed but equally as beneficial training with Josie. So that's how it started. I decided to just vlog my everyday with a guide dog, and it was literally, I'm making lunch and here's my guide dog Josie. I'm getting ready to go out with my guide dog Josie. Like very basic things, but people just loved the fact that I included my guide dog and everything. So I suppose I just used it as a unique selling point, I guess. And ever since then, I'm not as regular on it at the moment, but I try to just make a point that people with disabilities and people with guide dogs live normal lives, but there's just the addition of any support. I suppose it might not be as interesting if you were to include a white cane as a guide dog, but yeah, I think I just try to hone in the fact that my life is equally as chaotic and mundane at times as anyone without a disability.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I suppose just in terms of the guide dog, Josie, and it isn't a question that was kind of pre-prepared, but I suppose not everyone who's blind uses a guide dog. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about that whole kind of why you kind of were interested in getting a guide dog rather than using a white cane, because some people don't need any kind of support as well. So maybe if you kind of could share in terms of that, in how you feel the guide dog has supported you.
Yeah, absolutely. There are loads of visually impaired and blind people that don't use any form of assistance. And I suppose it's I should say that, like, I am legally blind, but I also am visually impaired because I have some level of sight. So there's a scale. So just because someone is classified as legally blind, like the guys were alluding to earlier, that does not mean that you have no sight at all. So technically, yes, I'm blind, but then people are always amazed when I point out visual things. They're like, "Are you like what can you see?" And I'm like, I don't know how to describe what I can see, because I can see what's going on around me. But then if you were to ask me to point out a little detail, I couldn't. But I suppose I didn't use any form of physical assistance until I was about 16. And what actually happened was I was walking in to do my junior cert, actually, and I was crossing a road and I got hit by a cyclist. And through no fault of the cyclist at all. It was, I was essentially another pedestrian on the road, but little did anyone know I could not see my own hand in front of me. And so I got hit by the cyclist. I was fine, went in, sat the exam, and then I came home and I was like, this happened today. And my parents were like, well, now it's time to start using your cane. And it was definitely tough love from the very beginning, which at times wasn't favorable, of course, but now it's shaped me into who I am. So I started using my cane then, and I actually, even after that, I didn't want to. There's a process that you go through when you're accepting the fact that you have a disability. And I was in the middle of going through this at the moment, and my parents actually, I was like, I had to use the cane for my own safety, but I would never see it like that. And now I'm like, well, of course, that's lethal. Like, thinking about it makes my blood pressure skyrocket. But at the time I was just completely against it. So I started using the cane, and then I never enjoyed using the cane, but it got me from A to B safer, and some people will move out of the way. There's of course obstacles of like using anything, even with the guide dog, some of them don't go away. But I essentially got the guide dog because I really, really did not enjoy using the cane. And I personally, this is all personal opinion, but I just didn't like how it looked. I didn't like how it worked. The idea of having something that was meant to help me, but I was also in control of it. It didn't sit right with me, because I also can't see where I'm going. So I can't see where I'm pointing the cane. So I could be missing things, if that makes sense, to my sides that I wouldn't be able to see. So the guide dog made more sense to me because it has a brain and it has eyes, and those are things that the cane don't have. And I've always loved dogs. So it was a good match. So I got Josie when I was 21. So I used the cane for about 5 years. And then she came into my world, and she is the best thing ever.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Bobby. I suppose when we're kind of talking about your employment experience, so I suppose maybe if you could share with the audience kind of what support did you have before you started employment. So did you have an orientation, or maybe, because you showed the video that was showed was talking about your first day, so it seemed like you knew exactly where you needed to go. So maybe talk about before you started your first day, what kind of supports were identified for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a few interviews before I got the role, and they were all really, really open and honest conversations. There was a few times where I could tell everyone in the room was being like, "Are we allowed to ask this question? Is this okay?" But I suppose I'll go back to that in a bit. But it's always okay to ask the question. It's the wrong thing is to not ask. And I suppose if you're nervous about asking the question, just be overly polite. that's you're never really going to go wrong with that, because the worst thing you can do is not ask and assume. So I had a few different interviews and a few different conversations with them about what supports I would need, and it was decided that I would have I would be brought in with the HR team and IBAC to do like a physical walk around the office and a tour, and to meet the people that I'd be working with, and that was really, really nice, really beneficial, lovely group of people to work with. And they literally walked me around the office as if I was like an external person coming in who wanted to assess the building. It was very much, these are the bathrooms, these are the sinks, and this is how you use this. And it was very ABC tour, but it was really beneficial. And then I met the people that I was working with. So at least when I came in, everyone knew what the story was with Josie and who I was, etc. And then I actually had a mobility assessment with the NCBI, and so that was another walk through the office where we just spoke about kind of, is the lighting okay in this area, do we need to get another handrail here, and something that was interesting that we actually had to get put in was Josie has to go on the left hand side, as every guide dog has to go on the left hand side. So when I'm walking down the stairs, the handrail was only on the left hand side, so they had to put in another handrail on the right hand side, to, because I couldn't hold the handrail, obviously, because I had Josie in my left hand. So just little things like that was really beneficial, that we got that done before I actually started. Now, very lucky that was able to happen. But that was just an example of what went on. And then when I started, then just again, open conversation, open communication about IT. As we've seen this morning, I do not have the best luck with technology. So yeah, just ongoing open conversation. And I suppose the more you talk to people, the more you get to know them. And then you can start making jokes about, hi, isn't this so awkward? Or I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. You probably think I'm whatever. You get to know each other, and it becomes less always formal because it's always about work, but it becomes less daunting, I suppose.
That's brilliant, and that's such a simple thing. It's just the handrails, because as part of the needs assessment process that we do in WAM, sometimes we, depending on the person's disability, we do have to look at things like handrail on stairs if they have any kind of mobility or visual impairment. And it's really surprising the amount of buildings that only have handrails on the one side of the wall, thinking everyone is going to either right-handed or left-handed. So
absolutely.
It's just so interesting. I didn't actually realize myself that the guide dogs have to be on the left hand side. So that's a really good point you put out. And just to kind of say again, private employers can actually apply for a workplace equipment adaptation grant, and it would include things like that in terms of getting the handrails kind of installed and stuff like that. So that is a grant that is available under the Department of Social Protection. It is the Reasonable Accommodation Fund is being reviewed at present, so that could change in terms of how the process is in terms of applying for it. But that grant is available for those minor adaptations like that, putting in additional handrails on stairwells and stuff. I suppose then kind of, Bobby, so you mentioned about IT. Do you use any particular piece of assistive technology in terms of doing your role with iPad?
Yeah, so I use a software called Zoom Text, which is a screen magnifier. So I'm not too sure how the NCBI might have a better way to explain it than I do, but essentially it zooms into the screen like kind of a pocket at a time. So it doesn't condense the actual screen into a bigger format. You're almost like looking through a zoomed in lens. And you can make like, for example, my cursor on my screen is like massive, a giant green. And then everything just appears bigger because I'm scrolling around the screen and it's like I'm looking through a magnifying glass. Mm-hmm. And you can use audio on it as well. You can have things read out to you. I don't really personally, it's my preference not to do that. I'll have documents and stuff read out to me, but when I'm rolling around the screen, I don't need anything else set out to me. But I think it's important to know that just because if you're hiring someone with a disability, just because you don't have all of these things already in place, like for example with the handrails, that wasn't in place when I did the first initial walkthrough, and that wasn't an issue. The issue is if you have someone with a disability in the workplace and you're not open to adapting, or you're not open to kind of being accepting and giving them the supports that they need. That's the issue. You're not expected to have everything already in place, if that makes sense, because how are you meant to know if you've never been in that situation? How are you meant to know? So I suppose if you're listening to this and you're kind of like, well, I didn't know, we don't have this, we don't have that, and that's awful. But actually, now the thing is, so I suppose it's about taking the necessary steps to achieving those goals, and not to be thinking that you're a terrible person if you don't have those steps already in progress.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And could you tell us a little bit about your current role with IBEC, your policy executive with IBEC at present?
Yeah, so I kind of work a little bit on policy and then social policy as well. I have a big interest in diversity and inclusion personally, and then my work last year in DCU has affected that too. So I kind of work a little bit about transport policy, the accessibility in terms of, what it's like to actually travel around the city to and from locations and getting public transport. I have a lot of unfortunate experiences with public transport in this country. I think Shane mentioned earlier that buses drive past people with canes. That has happened to me on numerous occasions. So I'm a lot of my work is taken from my own personal experience, and knowing that there are people out there that have had the same experience as me. And I'm just grateful that I have this platform, that I have this opportunity now to make a difference, and to help other people in my situation, or other children in my situation that are growing up, to make sure the world is more accessible for them, and about other policy as well, because it's not all about that,
Brilliant. I suppose Bobby, just kind of we're coming up to about 20 to 1 now. We want to have some Q&A as well. I suppose kind of what are your hopes for the future? I know it's such a broad question, and you're still very early on in your career, but I suppose, what do you want employers to know about hiring people with visual impairments or people who are blind?
My main thing is, I really want to make the process of hiring someone with a disability for the employer and the person being hired. I want to make that process easier. So I want to make it easier on the employer and the employee. I think at the moment there's a lot of, I shouldn't use the term awkwardness, but I hope you'll know what I mean when I say that, around this issue. And I think people are scared to ask questions, or they actually just genuinely don't know how to ask or what to ask. So I want to really make moves in terms of making it a less daunting process, because at the end of the day, they are just employees. They might need 1 or 2 extra resources, or they might need an extra few minutes on certain topics. But I think you'll find that actually, when they get used to what they're doing, and when they actually know what they're doing, it's just the same as having any other employee. So I want to break down those barriers and make it easier, because there's a whole other workforce that's untapped, that have so many skills and so many assets, and like me, have so much personal experience that can fuel the work that needs to be done. So I want to untap those really talented people that are waiting to be employed.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Bobby. And when you're saying there, I actually attended the National Disability Authority conference yesterday in Croke Park, and Caroline Casey kind of gave a speech at the very start, where she was talking about, it's important to have people with disabilities in your business, because they do lead to innovation and new ideas and suggestions of how to make things better for everybody. So a very simple example she shared was the remote control was initially designed for blind people in terms of accessing, changing the channels on TV. And then, SMS came about as a result of, I suppose, a way for deaf people to communicate. But look, we all now use a TV remote control, and we all use, texting, WhatsApp and all that kind of way. And those initially were designed for people with disabilities in terms of, I suppose, making access better for them in their everyday life. But it's actually become the norm now that everyone uses those pieces of assistive technologies, or whatever you want to call it. So I think it's great what you're doing on IBEC, and having that lived experience and being able to feedback and creating that kind of change going forward.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me. And I'm grateful that this is the platform that exists, and there's so many attending today, and I think it's very promising for the future. And yeah, there's a lot of people here, a lot of people focusing and listening, hopefully. So yeah, it's great.
Brilliant. So I might ask Martina and Shane if you both want to turn your videos back on. I'm just going to stop sharing the holding slide so people can see Shane and Martina and Bobby. You can still stay for Q&A if there are any in the chat box and stuff. So I think Shane and Martina, there were a couple of questions that kind of popped up in the chat. So I think there was a question on is there any financial support to help a visually impaired person be transported to their workplace if they do face a lot of challenges in terms of making their way there? So is there any financial support?
So it really depends on where you are, to be honest. Like the main financial support in regards to transportation is essentially the free pass that you receive that allows you to ride public transportation, and you can add one other person additional for free. But if you're in a more country part of the country, as strange as that may sound, I'm saying state still to this day, there really aren't many other options, to be completely honest. There's not like here's a taxi fund or anything like that that's currently in place. It really is just that public transportation card, to be completely honest with you. That's really kind of it. I wish there was kind of a better answer for you for that one, but
Yeah,
that's the reality.
I would just add that on NCPI website, we do have a list of government entitlements. So you can find information on what government benefits and allowances can either adults or children be entitled to. I'll share the link now there in the chat. So if it might help anybody, you have the whole list of whatever. Maybe you will find something that will suit your needs. It depends, but at least it's a resource, you know.
And I might just come in there as well. Again, at the NDA conference, they spoke a lot about kind of accessibility of transport in terms of getting to work. So how can you promote access to employment if the actual workplace isn't accessible with the infrastructure that we currently have? You know, so I suppose in terms of what other reasonable accommodation could employers put in place if it was feasible. So things like possibly offering, you know, hybrid working, you know, in terms of remote working if they did have that difficulty. Would you see there being any other types of support that employers could offer, such as flexible working hours or etc.?
Yeah, the name of the game right now really is hybrid or remote. I myself am working from home 3 days a week. Most of my colleagues work home a few days a week. And the benefit also of that is that a lot of the time, the individual already has all the assistive technology right there within the home. So a lot of the time that can also cut out some additional pieces or anything like that. We always do try to promote the hybrid one for those that do have the possibility, depending on where you are, access to transportation, et cetera, though, because working from home is great. There's a lot of benefits to it. You can roll out of bed in your sweatpants and log in from your bed and everything's great. But the social aspects, the community aspects, the everyday life skills, all those types of things that you get to utilize and that you get to practice and learn more about, that also has its own level of value. And again, it's that social inclusion, and it's getting people to understand that no matter what disability somebody may have, physical, invisible, whatever it may be, that they can still be successful in any sort of role, no matter what, whether they are home, in person, and being able to educate other staff and higher ups, et cetera, on those pieces.
Brilliant. And I suppose there was another question there in the chat around what career sites may be beneficial and supportive to visually impaired or sites face challenges. So would you have any idea of if a person with visual impairment is looking for work or further education and training, is there any specific sites that they can go to?
So Philip was actually kind enough to post a link to our website in the chat there, popular sites and how accessible they are. We actually had service users, I think down in the Cork region, actually, that did a lot of all that work.
It's not a service user. It's actually one of our labs team members. So,
oh yeah, I forgot. No, he's labs. Yeah.
He's also with visual impairment, and he and I put together the whole list, and we were checking with both with screen reader and some online tools how accessible most popular job search sites are. About the specific, there are no specific sites at the moment, but there is Open Doors website. Open Doors is an initiative that works with people with disabilities across the country and employers as well, and they do advertise job advertisements from their partners who are kind of dedicated to being more inclusive. So that's a good, maybe good way to go if you want to kind of apply for for an employer that is potentially already aware and has certain level of awareness when it comes to people with disabilities and their needs. Maybe go through that, but otherwise you can just use any regular website. We just have the list how accessible they are with the screen reader, and for people with visual impairment kind of in general. And we will also in the future advertise on our own website some of the partnering roles as well. So keep an eye on our ncbi.ie website. There'll be stuff coming up early next year.
And I might just plug our own Ahead WAM program here again. And so we do, we partner with employers to offer roles, and they're ring fenced exclusively for people with disabilities. So all of those job opportunities they usually go up onto our website, but the most important thing is for people to actually register on the database. So the website is ahead.ie/WAM works, and they register an account and they will get notified of any job opportunities and any other training we provide. But essentially they're only competing with other people with disabilities, and they will get a full needs assessment from us if they were successful in getting a position. So just to kind of promote ourselves as well on that. I suppose, I had a question here, and maybe Bobby, if you want to answer this one. I suppose in terms of if your colleagues working with blind or visually impaired people in the workplace, what should they be mindful of in terms of health and safety? Things like, bags under chairs and etc. Do you have any tips on how, I suppose, your colleagues, or not your colleagues in IBEC, but just in general, could be kind of more aware around kind of those health and safety aspects for people who do have visual impairments?
Yeah, I suppose first thing, it's important to note that everyone can see different, like everyone has different ranges of vision. And it's also, if you're unsure, you can also just ask. If you know that someone has a visual impairment and they're very open about speaking with it, you can just ask them if you're concerned, say, about like leaving things out on the floor. You can be like, I'm just wondering if there's chairs and stuff kind of in the middle of the aisle, can you see them, or would you prefer that I move them in advance? Or if there's flexes on the floor, can you see them? Because in this corner here, this is where we plug in all of our computers, and there tends to just be a lot of flexes on the floor. And I just don't want anyone to get hurt or something. I think health and safety is quite a daunting area when it comes to disabilities. And so I suppose for me personally, it's a hard one to answer because it's very personal to what that person can see. But basic things like picking things up off the ground, like try not to leave bags on the floor. If there's a flex that's quite short and it's kind of slightly elevated, if that makes sense, it's easier for someone to trip on. Try not to leave that out in an open area. Usually kind of your basic standard level office health and safety in general, for not leaving things out in the open, follow that, because if someone uses a cane or a guide dog, their mobility kind of assistant will be able to move them out of the way. Like in my office, they were worried about leaving chairs in the way, whereas Josie's trained to move out of the way of chairs, so I suppose again, just open communication and don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah. Jane, Martina, do you want to add anything else into that? No, oh good.
Sorry about that. Yeah. I had too many windows up. So like Bobby was saying, it's all going to be up to people. The most common thing, and we have this every morning, is like cups of tea. You know what I mean? That's the thing that we always kind of laugh about every morning, where, if you've got a cup of tea, you hand somebody a cup of tea, whatever it is, tell them exactly where it is. Don't put their hand on it, or if you move something on somebody's desk that you're working with, please let them know. I'm not going to say that I haven't made the mistake. I totally have. And it doesn't matter if you've been in disability services 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, a day, a week, you're going to make mistakes. And 90% of the time, it's something very small, it's light, and you end up laughing about it and you learn from each other. It's the same thing as like, sometimes health and safety can also be, or confidentiality can be, if you walk into a room, but people know, because they may be having a private conversation and it may be about you. Just let them know. Or if you're leaving, if you're having a one-on-one conversation and they're telling you something and you step out of the room for a moment, there's nothing worse than I have it happen with vision. I'll be telling something to my lovely wife and she'll just walk away. And I'm just like, and then I think that she's listening and she comes back and she hasn't. So, it's just little things, but with health and safety, it's all going to be individual. And people will tell you right off the bat, like Bobby was saying. And to answer Jackie's question, because Jackie, you said your screen reader's off. Philip let me know that they are going to be sharing the links to everything within a Word document that's going to be sent out. So you will have access to all of the links. And Jackie, to also connotate on your prior question, I do apologize that we didn't emphasize guide dog operators and users in more emphasis throughout this. We'll make a note of it, and we'll be sure to add more information next time when we do a similar presentation. We'll be sure to make that a highlight as well. So apologies, Jackie, if you felt not as represented as you should have within this presentation. So just wanted to let you know that was acknowledged.
Great. I think we kind of covered all of the questions there. So I suppose, do you have any kind of final points for our audience here today? We still have about 90 people watching this webinar. So Bobby, would you like to make a final comment?
Yeah, I suppose I just wanted to thank everyone for coming along, for giving us your time, and for being kind of willing to be part of the conversation. I know that everyone that's listening now is probably like, well, of course we want to be part of the conversation, but actually, unfortunately, it's not kind of the done thing, as opposed, like it should be done every single day, but it's not just yet. So we're grateful that you're here. We're grateful that you're taking part and that you're acknowledging the conversation and being a part of it. And thank you for your questions. And if anyone has any questions for me, don't hesitate to get in touch. And again, just remember that, using a weird analogy here, so bear with me, but if you know someone who has a food allergy, you're not going to hesitate to kind of ask them questions of, oh my God, can you eat this? Or if we go to this restaurant, is there options here for you? Or if you're celiac, are you able to drink this, etc. It's similar with the disability. You know, if we go here, is this okay? Is there space for your guide dog here? Or does this place have a good lighting for you? You know, little things like that. So it's not the same as having a food allergy, but I hope you understand what I mean about that analogy, that it is just about open communication. And like the NCBI alluded to earlier, you're talking to a person, you're not talking to a condition. So just remember that in your everyday lives, but you're all already on the road, on the right road by being here and being a part of this conversation.
Brilliant. And Jane, Martina?
I'm just going to emphasize what Bobby said, and mainly to say, thank you all so much for coming. It's something that's kind of commonly not always directly into the public eye. Again, not to sound like a pun in a weird way with that. But the fact that y'all took the time out of your day, especially on a Friday, and it's sunny and gorgeous out on this side of Dublin. So the fact that y'all stayed is just fantastic. And we really look forward to having people reach out to us, ask us questions, get involved with NCBI maybe a bit more, come to more of a heads webinars, because we attend them ourselves every time. They're always fantastic, a lot of great information, and we're glad we were able to contribute to that as well. So again, thank you, Carolyn and Philip, for including us here today.
Yeah, everything's been said. So thank you everybody again for joining and for being part of this conversation. And I hope we'll meet again.
Brilliant. And I suppose just to kind of wrap up here, so again, I'd like to thank all of our speakers here this morning. I forgot to mention that our webinar from last month, which was around accessible communication. So Martina would have talked a lot about making sure your job descriptions were kind of inclusive and accessible for people using screen readers, etc. We actually have that recording available on our webpage, the initial webpage for that webinar. So you just go to head.ie/webinar and you find the accessible comms webpage. The actual video is embedded onto that. So you get a lot of tips around kind of making sure your communications around recruitment will be accessible. So I'd like to thank my colleague Philip on tech support and PCR for captioning today's webinar. As always, your feedback is really important. There is a survey monk in the chat box. You will be sent it again once we send out all of the slides and the links in the Word document later on this afternoon. Our next webinar will actually be in February 2023. So I will see everybody next year. Bye everyone.
Bye everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.